Philip Crowther joins me now from Washington for more on the partnership between French President Emmanuel Macron and US President Donald Trump. He is the White House correspondent for France 24. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, of course, as we all watch this relationship grow between President Trump and President Macron, some describe it as a bromance, others see it more as a game of alpha male one-upmanship, one trying to outdo the other. Let's just watch the video where Mr. Trump lets the whole world know that Mr. Macron has a problem with dandruff. Let's roll that.
We do have a very special relationship. In fact, I'll get that little piece of dandruff off. Little piece. We have to make him perfect. He is perfect.
What would Mr. Macron have thought about that? He certainly dealt with it graciously in the front of the cameras, and of course I know you were there at the time. What would he be thinking behind closed doors?
Emmanuel Macron has been pretty stoic throughout this state visit, because there have been moments where he was faced with the harsh reality of Donald Trump when he, for example, in the Oval Office, sitting right next to the French president, criticizes the Iran nuclear deal at length, the precise main reason why the French president is actually in Washington to convince Donald Trump of the goodness of that nuclear deal. I still can't quite believe that I saw that, the dandruff moment, if you will. Again, Emmanuel Macron was quite stoic. He did manage to laugh about it, but he's had some difficult moments because, as you say, it is a very improbable relationship. They are very, very different personality-wise when it comes to their politics as well. But look at the body language. Of course, you have to. They've been touching each other a lot. They've been hugging each other. There have been some kisses on the cheeks. The personal relationship is actually good. I think we can pretty confidently state that over the last 2 days, we've seen that these two do get along despite all the political differences.
Yeah, I mean, the whole time we've been watching these two leaders, we've seen Mr. Trump tugging Mr. Macron towards him for hugs and handshakes, an effort for each man to get their hand on top. Is it a case, though, of one man trying to outdo the other with love and friendship? Or you seem to think this is a genuine friendship, certainly when you compare it to how Mr. Trump feels about Angela Merkel. But overall, what do the French people think?
Well, in France, the US president is a very, very unpopular man. This is something that doesn't necessarily go down well in France. It is something that people will laugh about, the way these two have been acting in public. And it is maybe also seen as something that is necessary, because as a French president, you're pretty much forced to get along with the US president. Certainly the French people and people in the French government will have you believe that this is much better than the relationship that the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who you just mentioned, has with the US president. It's a strange one, and there of course has to be some kind of an end result. That is why there was quite a bit of pressure on the French president to have what one calls a deliverable, something to bring home with him to France. It might be some kind of a willingness from the US president to remain in the nuclear deal with Iran or sign up for another one. It's not really clear what is going on there, but the pressure on the French president was pretty big. This can't just be a 3-day visit of that kind of a bromance, as you say, between the two without any kind of a clear end result.
Yeah, because that was his goal, wasn't it? President Macron went and came to the United States, and his main goal was to get President Trump on board with the Iran nuclear deal. It turns out the US president is open to this new arrangement with European allies that would preserve the Iran nuclear deal. So was that will be perceived as a win for Macron, presumably, and a face-saving approach for Mr. Trump, and a way perhaps to remove Barack Obama from the equation?
Yeah, he's never far away, is he? The US president, this one, does like to do the exact contrary of what his predecessor did, and you're not wrong to mention him. The deal that these two seem to have come up with is a bit of a strange one. I can tell you that the French government is trying to really sell this as a success story, that the French president is going home with something pretty good that he got out of the US president. But when you look at the details here, are we really looking at Donald Trump remaining in the nuclear deal with Iran, or will he sign up for a completely new one that has some additional elements to it? It seems almost like part of this was discussed today in the Oval Office and in the cabinet room, and that in that precise moment they came up with this halfway solution, if you will, because we know that the British, the Germans and the French have been working diligently behind the scenes with the State Department to try and come up with a new deal, if you will, that lets the US president say he kept his campaign promise, but he somehow still manages to remain in that nuclear deal with Iran. They might have found something here, but it'll be very difficult for them to really get this sorted out in just a few weeks' time, after all, because remember, it's the 12th of May when the US president has to decide, and he has threatened that he will decide to leave that nuclear deal with Iran. I'm not all too sure that what the French got out of this is good enough for that actual original deal to survive. Maybe a new one has to be there in place. All of this is awfully complex because neither of them have really asked Iran so far whether that country is on board with this new deal that seems to be being constructed. That's a big stumbling block after all.
Yeah, certainly. Philip Crowther, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.